We assess statelessness according to international laws concerning stateless people. A stateless person is somebody who is not considered a citizen by any country according to the operation of its own laws. And that's a really specific and important phrasing. It means that it could be a country may not legally see them as a citizen. They may actively deny them arbitrarily of citizenship. They also may not be a functioning country. So there's a lot of different categories of a lot of different reasons why a person will become stateless. So when we assess statelessness, we need to kind of look at all of these different reasons as to what might be causing a person's statelessness. And this often doesn't come to light until maybe a person has gone through the asylum system or has lived for many years in the country not realizing they're stateless. So assessing statelessness is a very complicated process. So it's very difficult to identify the number of stateless people in the UK. I'm not even going to try to put a figure on it. All I can say is it's probably a lot higher than what most of the classic estimates are. And the reason for that is because, as I've just said, statelessness is a very difficult thing to identify. Many people will live, may be born in the UK, may be going to school and not realizing that they actually have no citizenship until they hit the age of 16 to 18, maybe older, and they go to apply for a driver's license or they go to apply for a passport or something like that, and they realize that they're stateless. This is a huge problem. It means that we don't know really how many stateless people there are, and it's a huge barrier towards people, especially children, obtaining citizenship, because there is a kind of time limit onto how they, on a certain application procedure. They need to kind of get that application in before 22, and if they don't realise that they're stateless, then that can be a huge problem for them. Yeah, so we have kind of two main, I guess, projects, you might say. So we have the project for the registration of children as British citizens, which is a project which helps children who are often stateless to get them citizenship, because it's a legal process that people have to go through, but there is no entitlement to state aid, legal aid. So this is the project which helps them. We also represent stateless people, stateless adults as well. So we have encountered a lot of single men who are stateless, who have come from Palestine or have come from Kuwait or many African countries. People who may be from an area where there is no recognized state. We often have a lot of people who would be arbitrarily denied citizenship, and all those sorts. So there is quite a diverse range of people that we represent. Before the age of 22, very important, a child needs to apply for British citizenship. They need to have 5 years residency in the country, or 5 years, they need to be living in the country for 5 years. It's very difficult for them if that 5 years is broken up in any way, say by travel abroad. If they are stateless, it's probably less likely that they would have travelled. They need to be able to provide evidence. So they need to, in many cases, they need to be able to show that they are not a citizen of any country under the operation of its laws. So they need to go and get possibly a statement from the authorities of the country that their parents came from, and that can be inherently difficult. Their parents may not be around anymore. So they do need to find that evidence. That's one barrier. Another huge barrier is, which is the biggest problem of all almost, is that they need to pay a fee. These are people who are entitled to British citizenship, and these are young people who have probably never worked and don't really have much of an income, but they're expected to pay most of £1,000 in order to access citizenship, which is a huge problem. And obviously, if they're not entitled to legal aid to go through this process, it can also be quite expensive. So there's a lot that needs to be done to enable stateless people to be able to apply for citizenship. Absolutely. So under the Stateless Convention, the obligation is put onto countries, and Britain is the UK is a signatory of this. We have signed up to a commitment to reduce the barriers to citizenship. for stateless people in order to resolve their situation. But we still see these barriers in place, and the fee is a big thing. So for children, you're looking at £970 roughly for citizenship, including a fee for the citizenship ceremony, which they have to do. For adults, that rises to about £1,200. So we know of communities in the UK, people who themselves are stateless, their partner is stateless, they've got maybe 3 or 4 children who are stateless, and they're looking at paying most of £10,000. And these are people who may never have been able to work legally. So that it's very difficult for them. And we have signed up to a commitment to reduce these barriers, but they're still making a huge profit out of citizenship. So we know that the aspect of the fee for children applying for citizenship is roughly £300 and something, which means that about £700 of that of the total fee is profit, which it shouldn't be. So there's a huge argument here that we should be reducing the fee to enable people to get citizenship. In the context of the obvious lack of knowledge that there is out there about statelessness, as I said, people may not be aware that they are stateless until very much later on. There's also a huge amount of ignorance among caseworkers as to statelessness. So we find often that people who have gone to lawyers to kind of resolve their situation, the lawyer has suggested applying for leave to remain, which is totally the wrong approach, which takes up time when they should be applying for citizenship. So there is a huge, this cutoff year of 22 years is a problem in that context, because people often don't realise they're stateless until they're into their 20s, by which time it can often be too late. And the big difference is that there's a lot more in terms of requirements that are put on. So you need to be in the country for 10 years as opposed to 5. You need to be you need to be of good character, which means that if you have any sort of mark on your record, be it a conviction for anything or a warning, it could cause problems for your application. So getting the application in before the age of 22 is really important, and obviously then you're looking at paying even more money after the age of 22, and it's altogether a much more complicated process.